Welcome back to Vizaural, and today we're going to take a look at some of my favorite records from 2018. So every time I see one of these videos on YouTube or people talk about it in a podcast, they always seem to have to preface it with this disclaimer that, well, these are just my opinions and this is not a definitive list, which seems quite obvious. Of course, if you're stating what you feel is the best, of course it's your opinion. You don't need to go and have some kind of bizarre preface at the beginning. But obviously, these are the things that I feel were some of the best records of the year. I didn't even list all of the things that I thought were really strong. I just went and took a look at what were the tracks that I seemed to return to the most. One of my favorite records is from an artist called Adrienne Linker. She had a really awesome full length that was on, I think it was Saddle Creek, Hibiscus. It was just a really interesting kind of subtle folk record, but with lots of experimentation. Really interesting piece. My second favorite record is one I played a whole bunch. In fact, I really wanted to make a review of this record. I just didn't get around to it. It's by actually two acts, both of them on Burger Records. One of them called Triptides, which makes really kind of 1960s surf rock records, and Winter, a Brazilian act. And they made a great record together, which is all in Portuguese or predominantly in Portuguese. And it's just this awesome kind of nostalgia 1960s psychedelic surf pop record. It's great. I haven't yet talked about Acid Mother's Temple, at least in any kind of long form, because it's one of the reasons I started this channel. I looked on YouTube and I thought, gosh, there's not a lot of people talking about this band, and I think they've done some incredible releases, some incredibly weird releases, some releases that aren't very good, but they've always been interesting. And I think that with this record this year, at least one of the records they made this year, this is Electric Dream Ecstasy. They came out with a couple of different releases, but this one I feel like they've really refined their craft. They're doing some of the most interesting psychedelic music, which is also not too bizarre and winky just to be special. Like this track that you're going to hear right now, it actually has some pop structure, at least some pop elements to that psychedelic facade that they have. Big fan of VOCs for a long time. I've got, I would say most of their catalog. I own either a cassette copy or a vinyl copy, but I really liked what they did with this new LP, where they've always been good at kind of mining the past when it comes to different types of garage rock or punk rock or whatever it is that they were trying to synthesize and bring into their own style. This time, they almost have like a proto-metal or psychedelic metal. Some people have called it even like a prog record. But it's an incredible piece. It's one that I definitely listened to a lot when I was riding to work on my bike. I just put this record on and it just kept me going. It had some awesome, awesome hooks, and they really took themselves to a new place. onto a bit of a metal kick this year, partially because of the Vizaural podcast we've been doing, where I've just been looking up more kind of low-key metal acts, maybe from the greater Bay Area, or just what are some acts that are pretty popular right now on some of these major metal record labels. And one of the bands that I found, and I'm really thankful I did, is the band Vizaural. This record is just an incredible piece that I think even people who aren't big fans of metal, or maybe don't enjoy like the kind of the screamy, the more harsh sounds that the metal community can create, this is a great record to throw at them, because this is the kind of music, it's headbanger music, but it's a headbanger music where you're also pumping your fists, you've got an ale in hand, you're thinking about Lord of the Rings and, warrior princesses and fighting orcs. I mean, the lyrical content is absolutely ridiculous, but they do it in such a way that it's fun. You want to like join in the battles that this music is talking about. And the band is super, super tight. They're from Salt Lake City of all places, and it's just an incredible record.
I will not stray from the code of my order. Right over by steel, by silver, I flame like a wolf in the night. By steel, by silver, I flame. Rooms of power be my right. By steel.
And by no means these are the best 9 records of the year. These are the 9 records that I've been returning to the most. I'm sure I can keep going on another 10, 20, 30 records of awesome stuff. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But this last one I wanted to share is from Shannon Shaw. If you know Shannon and the Clams, a Burger Records band, again, I'll bring them up. They've been one of my favorites. In fact, they're a band that my wife really likes. We've seen them a couple times, and they always were great about kind of capturing a 1960s aesthetic and the sound, and they would process it through maybe a Pink Flamingos or a John Waters kind of veneer of, well, yes, this is that music from that era, but now this is done by odd people and weirdos, and they always made it a bit more interesting than I think a lot of the other retro contemporaries that were around them. Now Shannon Shaw has this solo record, and what's great about it is she takes what she does really, really well in Shannon and the Clams. She brings it to Nashville, gets some of these professional musicians, people recording in some of these studios with Elvis and the likes, and puts out a record that I've said this before in some of the other episodes in the podcast. If this would have come out 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I mean, she would have been a huge star. Hopefully she still will be with this, because it's an incredible record. It's one that I think everyone can enjoy. It's the kind of record you can get your parents, you can get a coworker. They're going to find something to like.
Bring her the mirror. I saw myself staring back. The eyes were so sincere. At first I didn't recognize, but then it became clearer. Bring her the mirror. Bring her the mirror.
So that's all for today. I want you to tell me, what were some of your favorite records of 2018? If not even records, what were some of the favorite songs you uncovered? I know I learned a lot about music this year, partially thanks to us starting up this show, but just really digging back into the music community, trying to figure out what are some of the interesting things that are happening today. So tell me what you think.